Are we overlooking the Phoenix Suns collectively?
Ooh, I I mean, first of all, and they might dovetail just because the move they made with the one of the other teams I had on my list.
Okay.
I kind of feel like yes, it just like you look at the issues they've had, and they're real issues. But like the turnover stuff, when you have your big three, it's not as prevalent through most of the game. Fourth quarters have been in issues. We've seen defenses blitz them. But you know what's been a bigger issue for them in fourth quarters? Nobody hits a wide open jumper. They still generate them, but they shoot. And I've mentioned this now, I think like 3 times. They have an effective field goal percentage of above 63 on wide open jump shots outside 10 feet through the first 3 quarters. That number drops to dead last in the NBA at about 46 in the fourth quarter. That's like Grayson Allen turns into a pumpkin. Like Bradley Beal has struggled at points. But I look at this team, everyone, not everyone. A lot of people thought they needed a point guard. I think they picked Royce O'Neal's not super athletic. I think they picked the right need, which was let's get another someone who like look, let's be honest. Yusuf Nurkic has been good. Grayson Allen has been good. Eric Gordon has had his moments, but there's a chance that we look back at the trade deadline and say, did the Suns just acquire their fourth most important player? Like that's how good of a fit Royce O'Neal is. And so I think they just checked that the right box. And so like, are we overlooking them in the sense of could they win it all? I think we are, because if the caveat is just, well, their 3 stars need to be available, well, no shit. And so it's
Yeah.
just like we can't write them off because of that caveat. Otherwise, we'd be writing off the Clippers right now.
Right. Right. And I mean, Beal has missed so much time this year, and even Booker and Durant missed a couple games here or there. So we haven't seen them at full strength all that much this year. It's gotten much better as of late, but I'd say really for the first couple months of the season, it was like, okay, Beal's back, but KD's out. KD's back. Booker's out. Booker's back. Beal's out. So it just felt very inconsistent. But I mean, they're only 5 games back of the 1 seed right now. Over the last month, I think they're 12-3,
Yeah,
and
they've been killing it.
they're playing like they played the Blazers, the Bulls, the Nets, the Wizards. So woohoo! I'm not gonna go celebrate that, but they've also beaten in that stretch the Sacramento Kings, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Indiana Pacers, the Dallas Mavericks, the Miami Heat, the Milwaukee Bucks. So no, yes, I'd like to see them prove it against the top tier contenders. They've got OKC and Denver in a 3 and 4 night stretch. Houston and then OKC is a back to back, and then at Denver 2 nights later at the beginning of March. So that'll be fun. But like that might be a good litmus test for them. Um, but I mean, yeah, I mean, like if you have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker alone, we saw how potent those two guys could be in that
Yep.
series against Denver last year. Now you add Bradley Beal to the equation, you add these other guys. Like, yeah, they lost some of their depth that they acquired this offseason in the trade to get Royce O'Neal. That's okay. I mean, we knew from the moment they went with this big three strategy, they were going to be very, very top heavy, and they were going to have to lean on they're probably going to cut to like a 7 or 8 man rotation in the playoffs, and that's
They just
fine.
got someone who's definitely going to be a part of it too, which you could not
Right.
say about any of the like. You don't want an Anunoby already wasn't really playing. It's like you couldn't say that about anyone that they sent out.
Yeah, like Keita Bates-Diop is probably the best one of the four, and I mean I think you're
They
just
got
getting
Josh
Royce.
Okogie at home.
Right.
They have the offensive liability wing defender. There you go.
Right, exactly. And now, yeah, you have Royce O'Neal, who should be a plug and play fit there. So, I think it's similar to OKC. Like their move is gonna fly under the deadline because everyone's so busy falling over themselves trying to praise what the Knicks did and trying to make fun of the Chicago Bulls and the Lakers and the Warriors. But I think the Suns got notably better yesterday, and there's this focus on Minnesota, Denver, OKC, Clippers because the standings are all still bunched at the very top of the conference. But Phoenix is just lurking there. Like, hey guys, you do remember that we have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, right? Like we are still a championship contender as well.
And there's 2 variables that I think one's in favor of the Suns and one isn't. Like the one that's in favor of them is like Bradley Beal has, and this because he missed some time, and I think he was always going to be the player that needed to adjust more. He's had to make more adjustments and he struggled at points, but to his credit, he hasn't really tried to like deviate from the script. And there are just moments when you can see it work and see it clicking and how this is all supposed to coalesce together. So they're going to get better. They might get better on offense is my point. A team that
Yeah.
over their last 30 games, I think is like 5th in offense. Oh, they're fourth in offense over their last 30 games. And I don't remember what they were overall on the season. They're sixth for the season. Now, the one that I have questions about, and you watch them and you don't understand it, you dig into the data and you start to understand it, and then you wonder if it holds up in the playoffs. They're just hovering around league average on defense, despite not necessarily having the personnel to do so. And then you start to look at it, it's like they haven't really gotten too lucky on opponent 3-point shooting. They haven't gotten like teams aren't hitting mid-range jumpers against them, but that's like not the hugest deal. And then you look, it's like they're not a good defensive rebounding team overall. Some of their lineups can be, but just overall they're not. Their backup big situation is traditionally a mess. Like Drew Eubanks might decide to play well for 2 or 3 games at a time, but that's about it. And yet they're a team, and I think people started to come onto this with the Denver Nuggets last year. If you're league average defensively, but you're super ultra elite on offense, you can win the title. My issue with the Suns, and they address this a little bit with Royce O'Neal, just a little bit, is Denver always had like some of the individual defenders. Aaron Gordon specifically, they had Bruce Brown last year, and now they have Peyton Watson in sort of a stay. You looked at them and said like they could. You could see the theory of what they were going to do on defense at the highest level. And then you also got, Jamal Murray turns it up a notch. And the Suns have that with Devin Booker. Like the kind of like Jamal Murray, he'll kick into the next gear, especially in one-on-one situations. The Suns don't have their Aaron Gordon. They don't even have their Michael Porter Jr., who during the playoffs last year, and you don't need to listen to his opinions on the WNBA. I'm talking strictly about his like he comes in, he's crashing the glass. He's defending his ass off. He's like making good help rotations. I don't see that on this team necessarily. And so I sort of question whether when they're going up against teams that are, and I'm not smart enough to know the answer to this. I'm honest. I'm genuinely just asking this question. When teams are going to be able to game plan for them in a best of 7 series, do we see some pullback from a defense that I would say overall, and especially relative to the personnel that they have, has overachieved and is in a spot where you're like if you just take the defensive returns at face value, which again, there's nothing that stands out that's you can even, one of the things I thought about watching them is their offense is so good. They get set, like that helps, but like they get back after committing a turnover or missing a shot. Like, so they have that in them. And so you look at these results, and if you told me they're just the 14th or 15th or 16th, the best defensive team in the league, and that'll hold up in the playoffs, we are absolutely sleeping on the Phoenix Suns. I'm just wondering, and I think we overall are sleeping on them. I'm just very curious to see whether that type of league average play can hold up in the playoff crucible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if it can't, there is low hanging fruit for them to address on offense, but it's fair to wonder if they're ever going to do it. That they are 26th in 3-pointers attempted per game. They are 24th in 3-point rate. I mean, 4 of their 5 best shooters are shooting 38% or higher from 3-point range, the one exception being Bradley Beal, who's at 36.2%. So they have 5 very good 3-point shooters on the team, and yet they are taking the 5th fewest 3-point attempts per game. So even if the defense does backslide, I'm not saying they need to be the Boston Celtics and fire up almost 53s a night. That's like, but I think there is a better balance that they can find between the mid-range shots that especially KD and Booker are so lethal on, and can we stretch the floor a little bit more? And I think Royce O'Neal might help in that regard as well.
Yeah, he definitely will, because right now they only have one player attempting more than 6 3-pointers per 36 minutes. And that's just like, even Grayson Allen's under 6 attempts per 36 minutes. And that's like, Grayson Allen, buddy, like that should probably be on a permanent basis. That should be up near 10. I feel like
you're shooting almost 50% from 3, guy. Like, this is your only role on offense.
And I will say there's room, and we've seen it, I think, for Devin Booker's volume to climb there, because I think, I mean, when you look at his just like 3-point splits for his career, he's definitely like first team. All his shooting form makes you think he's had a 45% from 3 season when he really hasn't. But like, I do think the extra volume is probably going to need to come from a Beal or a KD, just because like they're so low. They're barely at, KD's not even at 5 attempts per 36 minutes. And look, it's an oversimplification, but we just went in detail on all this other stuff. The math is going to matter.
Yeah.
And so when you're a team, what I think is good about them, we'll see if it holds in the playoffs. Okay, you're a team that, despite not putting a ton of pressure on the basket, like you're going to get to the foul line. They're actually second in free throw attempt rate on the season, which is, when you consider where they rank as a team when it comes to the share of their shots that just come at the rim, they're actually 7th. I didn't realize they were that high up. Am I reading that wrong? Oh, that's accuracy. I knew I was like, maybe you don't watch any. They're
That's still
25th.
impressive. Okay.
Yeah, they're 25th in the share of their shots that come at the rim. And so if that holds into the playoffs, is it harder to draw the shooting fouls when it's coming from the perimeter? The guys are talented enough that maybe it doesn't matter, but that's also a fair question as well. But you're
Yeah.
right. Royce O'Neal will at least help with the 3-point volume for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not saying I'm picking the Suns to win the West by any means, but I
So
do
I heard
think, yeah,
aggregators.
there you go, there you go. But I mean, it like if you held a gun to my head and said it's Minnesota versus Phoenix in the second round of the playoffs, I don't know.
Your
It would
face
be
just
tough.
said it all. Your
Yeah, it'd be
face.
tough for me to pick against the team with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker.
And,
Maybe it's too simple. Like maybe I'm just lizard braining this, but I
and
don't
they
know.
they would definitely, I think they would try to like style the shit out of the series and just say, you know what, Kevin Durant's going to play more 5, and we're going to see what that
Yeah.
does to their dual big
Right.
setup.
And yeah, it goes back to my concern with Minnesota. Like all of these other teams, I think are going to have a little bit more ability to change their identity.